one woman that is a Mayan abdominal massage therapist who's been practicing steaming for the last 25 years, she was saying, and she also teaches. Um, for her, this has been a regular part of her practice, but since having the seat, she's just saying it's making it so much simpler that she's able to do it more regularly, and has noticed some shifts like post-menopause where she's feeling, a bit more sensation come back, even though she's been practicing for a long time. Being able to make it a more regular ritual with a tool that just makes it so much more accessible with her typical routine has really changed the way that she's feeling in her body.
Everybody to the Holistic OBGYN podcast. If you're watching, or if maybe there's even a little bit of a slur in my speech, it's because my face met head on with a tree trunk just yesterday, the day before I'm recording this, while I was mountain biking in Cherokee Park here in Louisville, Kentucky. I got thrashed. And so I've got a big old swollen right side of my face. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, of course, this podcast is on YouTube. What a way to start the show. Yeah. So I survived. The tree stump survived, of course. And I played pickleball today and hobbled around on a bum knee from that wreck, but feeling good, on the mend. Just wanted to give you a little disclaimer in case you do happen to catch the gnarly bruise on my face if you see the intro to this podcast over on the YouTube channel. But I digress. This is another really, really fun episode that I got to do with a woman and her partner, Jessica and Andrew Pratt, who they threw a Hail Mary. They realized through Jessica's own sort of healing journey that there was a really, really great benefit to so many women from the standpoint of this ancient and new to many of us technology of Yoni or vaginal or pelvic steaming, call it what you will. The reality of this practice is it's super, super simple. And sometimes very, very simple things don't seem like they can possibly have the benefit of $100 million pharmaceutical or a surgery that your doctor has told you absolutely need to have. Right? These are highly trained professionals, and the medical literature does not support this simple steaming practice. So how could it possibly be of benefit? Well, we don't need a Harvard study to tell us that breastfeeding is better than bottle feeding or formula feeding any more than we need a practice that is anecdotally has convinced me that there is definitely a room for this in every women's health practice in the United States. I have had women with fertility issues, with fibroids, with anovulatory, quote, cycles, anovulation, whether it's PCOS or for some other reason, early atypical cells found in the endometrium, abnormal cells on the cervix, adenomyosis, pelvic pain. I mean, you name it, I have found some use for this. Chronic UTIs or recurrent bladder symptoms. I mean, all sorts of things. So when I got interested in this, I got to be friends with Kelly Garza, the steamy chick. I took her steaming facilitator program and I started steaming myself. Well, I will tell you that steaming is absolutely very, very unlikely, let's say, to cause you any harm. But I did it over a camp stove on a bedside commode, and I lit the nylon casing around the jet boil stove on fire while I was doing it. And so I had to jump off very, very quickly before I had any issue to my lower parts, let's just say. And since then, I found, wow, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I got a Bunsen burner, and then you can continuously heat a pot of water that way. But it was still like a whole production, right? And they do make, nice cedar, sauna stools with, basically it's a stool with a hole in it. You put some boiling water underneath there, and you're just basically taking tea and the steam and the additional therapeutic benefits of a variety of different herbs that you can mix and match based on your specific needs. It comes up through the hole and it flushes into your holes, your anus. If you have a vagina and a cervix, it's going to flush up into those structures on the outside, the vulva, the testicles, all over the outside, into the anal verge. You're going to get steam permeating through all of these tissues, which restores blood flow optimally. And then if you get some additional therapeutic benefits of the herbs, just cherry on top. The sauna stool, the boiling pot of water, all of that is great. And if that's what you do, that's what you do. But then I met Jessica Pratt, and she was like, "Can I send you one of my stools? I think you're really going to like it." And it changed everything. So it has a stainless steel canister that I believe it's an electrolysis process. You get a steam very, very quickly without having to carry a hot pot of water or anything like that. She also sent me some herbs, lovely herbs. And then there's a very, very comfy, kind of like a toilet seat on top. It's plastic, but all of the heating elements are all metal. It is beautiful. There's a red light for some additional therapy, and you can remove the toilet seat, and they have a face sort of accoutrement that you can actually do a facial steaming process there as well. I loved it. And I was like, we got to get this to more people. And I said, you know what? The best way to do that is for you and Andrew, your husband, your partner in this whole operation, to come on and talk about what that journey was like for you. Why did you get into this? What has this done for Andrew and his understanding of the female anatomy and some of the benefits of steaming? I don't oftentimes do this just to bring people on to talk about products, but their story, their journey, their sort of commitment to the very, very simple ways that we can care for ourselves, especially the women in our lives. It was a really, really, really awesome opportunity for me to have one of those conversations, from man and father to a woman, a man, parents, and to really, really try to help you understand and clarify how this steaming practice can be done easily, effectively for a variety of women's health issues. So you're going to love this episode. If you feel compelled to check out LEIAMOON, that is the name of this company. Go to LEIAMOON.com, and if you look in the podcast description, you're going to find a specific link there for you to save $50 on your purchase of one of these stools. I would have it right here on camera at this moment, except I've lent it to one of our friends who's utilizing it for some Yoni and cervical work, we'll just say, that has been very, very important to them. One other thing I haven't mentioned is when a person develops abnormal cells on the cervix, or they get persistent HPV, there's a blood flow issue. There's an immune system issue. And this is really the same issue that leads to all of the other problems that I just mentioned. Steaming is a part of a very, very healthy self-care practice that can help you with your persistent HPV. It can help you with these abnormal cells, because by restoring blood flow and doing a bunch of other a variety of lifestyle factors in order to improve your immune health, your adrenal health, your endocrine system, your nervous system, all of those things, your gut health. Once you get all that on board, if you can get blood flow, get all those healthy, healing immune cells to the tissues, you're going to find that your persistent HPV screen is going to come back negative like that. Your abnormal pap is going to be totally clean bill of health next time. So we've incorporated a lot of steaming education and implementation resources into our new program, Clear and Free. It's the newest edition of the Born Free method, the Born Free universe. And if you want to check that out, by the time you're hearing this, we are going to already have a number of people enrolled and taking this program. It's 90 plus lessons on everything under the sun from a lifestyle management standpoint, but also a lot of education and demystification of the cervical cancer screening process. You're going to absolutely love this program. We also include 6 months of monthly calls with me and Mimi Lindquist, my co-creator. You're going to get a free bottle of Immune Intel HCC whenever you enroll, and you're going to have us in your corner to help coach you through this otherwise very simple thing that has been made overly complicated and riddled with fear from your OB/GYN or nurse practitioner. So go to clearhpv.com if you're interested in that. We also talk quite a bit about steaming in the Born Free method, and I've had Kelly Garza come onto the show to talk about all of the things I've already mentioned, but also utilizing steaming for postpartum recovery and labor preparation. Yeah, I said it. It's awesome. So bornfreemethod.com if you want to get into that community. So I am going to be paring down the sponsors for this podcast because I'm really kind of tired of reading ads, and I don't want to be boring people with stuff that they're just going to skip over anyways. So by, let's see, the end of November, there's going to only be one reigning sponsor of the podcast, a product that I believe in so near and dear to me, and that is Immune Intel HCC. If you want to learn more about that product, go to the medicine without the E, themedicine.com/products. Use code beloved10. You can save 10% on your bottle of Immune Intel HCC, which is clinically demonstrated to help clear HPV for those of you out there who just can't seem to integrate this pesky virus. But we do have one other sponsor, and that is WeNatal, one of the best prenatal vitamins I've ever come across, also supported by Dr. Mark Hyman, sort of like the gangster of functional medicine. I've trained with him at the Institute for Functional Medicine. He is an amazing podcast of his own. He and I are both backing this vitamin, which is for both men and for women who are on their fertility journey. The reason I like it so much is not only are you getting adequate amounts of vitamin D and folate and choline and all this other stuff, they also are so thoughtful about the packaging. Many of the good vitamins out there, and there's a lot of good vitamins out there. They're definitely outnumbered by all the junky vitamins out there, but a lot of them require you to take 10 capsules per day. WeNatal has figured out a way to formulate their capsules so that you only have to take 3 capsules per day and still enjoy all the benefits of their vitamin. When you subscribe, you get a glass jar and a travel size jar, by the way, which I've been using for a variety of supplements. But you get your glass jar, and then every month they send you a sleeve of more capsules to refill your stock for the next couple months. I love that because it minimizes the waste. I get people sending me products all the time, and there's so much packaging, so much plastic and cardboard and everything that goes to waste. That's a part of the reason that I'm not doing as many affiliate engagements anymore, except for really, really great companies that I really, really love, like LEIAMOON. And like Steamy Chick and Immune Intel. I don't want all of this junk filling up my garbage can every month. And if you care about that, you care about the health of your temple when you're growing a baby from preconception all the way through postpartum, hell, these are great everyday multivitamins for men and women. Go to wenatal.com/beloved. You will save some money. And I'm sorry, no, you won't save some money. You're going to get, it's even better than that. Instead of saving a couple bucks, they're throwing in a free bottle of their Omega DHA Plus, which is one of the best fish oils I've found in the prenatal space. That's going to be free of charge whenever you add any prenatal product to your checkout cart at wenatal.com. So go to wenatal.com/beloved. You're going to love them. They'll send you a little pregnancy mind body journal. That's amazing. And then of course you and your partner are going to be able to take these together every single day as you strive to have the healthiest pregnancy and childbirth experience that you can possibly dream of. So thank you, WeNatal, for supporting the show. All right, guys, without further ado, the founders, the creators, the head honchos at LEIAMOON, my new friends from afar, Jessica and Andrew Pratt. Jessica and Andrew, LEIAMOON, you guys are here. Finally, we got it to work out. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for having us. My
pleasure. My pleasure. You for those listening, this whole podcasting thing sounds really easy, but we had to make sure we dialed in the audio because I really want to hear. I want you guys, listeners, to hear from Jessica and Andrew, who have a very sort of unique offering out there, which is a reliable. It is plastic, but there's a stainless steel drum within which the water can be heated, and you can sit on this padded stool. You can also use it for facials in order to engage in maybe your first vaginal or Yoni steaming practice. So when you guys reached out, Jess, I think it was you who reached out. You were like, hey, do you want me to send you a stool? And I was a little skeptical, honestly, because I was like in the process of coming up with a blueprint to build my own out of cedar and whatnot. And then it arrived and I was like, scrap the blueprint. This is exactly what I need and what everybody else needs. So maybe why don't you guys start by saying, first off, you guys are in a pretty niche space, right? Yoni steaming is starting to emerge as maybe this really great self-care thing, but why plunge into producing a stool? Like, what was the motivation there?
I think just like you, I was trying to dial in my setup at home. And for me, I didn't even get to the building the wood stool part. I was boiling a pot of water on my stovetop in my Brooklyn apartment, setting it on the floor of my tiny living room, wrapping my body in a blanket, and doing my best to kind of, do my goddess squat and hover over this to relax. And it felt really kind of dissonant in that moment of trying to relax, but also trying to hold this precarious position over a boiling pot of water. And I came up with some other creative ways of, being more in child's pose or on my knees with pillows, but it was really hard to figure out. And I mean, a lot of that is based on how traditionally women practice this through, many generations and many different cultures all over the world. But here we are in these modern times where we have so much more technology available to us. And Andrew and I were dating and living together at the time. And he was like, well, you're an architect. You should design a seat for this. So that was what got the wheels turning.
Yeah, she came home from a women's circle and showed me this whole thing that they were doing, which I had never heard of, but something about it clicked with me when she showed me the whole thing and then went through the experience and was just talking about how amazing it was. And yes, she's an architect by trade. So when I saw like how cumbersome the setup was, immediately I was like, you could design something for this that's going to be way better than just doing what you're doing right here. And that's what kicked it all off.
Yeah, so I've done Kelly Garza, who's the steamy chick. I know that you're probably friends with her, at least acquaintances.
For sure.
I did her training and I went through the same process. I was like, well, I got to try this out. In fact, part of the training is set it up and do the steam and then take pictures and report back. And I was like, all right. Well, what I started with was a big pot of water and then books stacked up on either side. And then I'm kind of like one foot's a little higher than the other, but I'm just in a deep squat for like 10 minutes, which is not that big of a deal, but it certainly isn't relaxing. I did find some benefit, as I told you before we started recording, on a rash that I had on my inner thighs, like in my groins, like a jock itch kind of pattern. I was also thinking maybe I'll use this in order to decrease my sperm count by like blasting my gonads with steam. I never really got there because I really wasn't totally situated with how this steaming practice was going to look like. Plus, like how often do you have to do it to decrease your sperm count and all this other stuff. So some of the other options that I've learned about are there's some beautiful, stools out there made of cedar and oak and all these different options. Some of them, are expensive because it's like handmade. It's like a piece of craftsman furniture. On the other hand, you could squat over a bowl, which is uncomfortable. And then the other option I found was like a bedside commode. The problem is that there was no way of containing the steam. So it was just going up over the genitals, around the anus, around the perineum. And so it was like, and then you sent me the stool and it was like, this makes so much sense. So what are some of the features of the LEIAMOON stool that kind of differentiate it from some of these other options? Because obviously you took those into account when you were designing it.
Yeah, and probably the number one objection to steaming that you hear, like from people that have probably never steamed before, is like, don't do that. You could burn yourself. So that was one question that we really wanted to answer if we're going to be making an electronic steam seat. So one of the features we're very proud of figuring out how to finagle was introducing a steam safe temperature control system. So with this seat, there's a sensor inside that will measure the temperature of the steam in real time and display it on a little LCD screen for you to watch. But you can also program in the temperature that you want to steam at and calibrate it during your session, and it will stay within like a 5-degree range of what you're inputting. And it doesn't go higher than 115 degrees, so it's also kind of controlling how hot it can get within the chamber.
I will share, based on what you just said, I will share that when I was trying to figure out a way to do a continuous steam, I started with a jet boil that I had from my backpacking days. And I put the pot on top of there, lit the jet boil, and then sat there for a while. And the jet boil sheath caught on fire. And I was like, why is it so? Oh my God, there's a fire. There was like a fireball under me. So for those out there who have heard this is unsafe and all that, it is not unsafe if it's done right. I just didn't do it right. So this is the easiest, most affordable way to get started, because all of that sort of worry kind of goes away. There's almost no way to mess this up. If anything, you haven't set the temperature high enough and you're maybe not getting the most benefit, like big deal. So you adjust it next time. You know, Andrew, if you guys are listening, there is a YouTube version of this. Andrew, while Jess was explaining this, Andrew held up the steam chair. It has like a couple buttons. It has a plastic guide, and then there's a stainless steel bowl on the inside. So you're not heating up plastic. You're actually hydrolyzing the water, I suspect, and that is causing the steam. So you put a lot of really, you know, a lot of thoughtfulness into the design here. Andrew, I'd be curious to hear from you. Have you tried steaming? And have you used this chair for yourself, given that we've got some extra bait and tackle there in order to accommodate?
Yes, I have tried it. It's for me, I've always been an advocate of sauna, generally speaking, and steam rooms. You know, back when I lived in Brooklyn, I used to go to this place called Body by Brooklyn. That was it had a whole you know, multi-steam sauna setup, and I would do rounds in there. So I've always been a proponent of the heat, moist and dry to the body, generally speaking, for the, you know, the cleansing effects and the relaxation benefits. And I would actually do my workouts in the steam room. I was kind of a psycho. I would bring in cinder blocks and do squats in the steam room. So I've been on this like steam sauna thing myself for a long time. When it comes to using this product, I've tried it a couple times. I mean, we've really geared it more towards women and specifically vaginal steaming. That being said, there's a lot to be said for lingam steaming. And you're right, for the bait and tackle for men, it's doable on this seat, but we haven't, you know, geared a product really that's built for the male anatomy yet, although that may be something, you know, in the pipeline. And we do have other men who have used this product who are actually endorsing it. We have a couple of, we've got a pretty well-known male affiliate who uses this product, and he's super into steaming down there. For me, that's not been like a regular part of my self-care routine, but because I haven't had any major issues that I've felt that I've really needed it for, and I really have my own sauna steam like full body regimen. Yeah. But it's really geared towards vaginal steaming, and for that we went all in on trying to make it the best possible version of what it could be from day one, which is why, you know, we hatched this idea in 2016. Here we are, you know, almost 7 years later, and it's finally, the product is here. But that, you know, involved multiple iterations of going back and forth with design engineers, materials engineers, you know, consulting on getting the best, highest quality, highest grade materials for each and every component, going through rigorous testing processes to make sure that everything was skin safe, non-toxic, non-porous foam for the seat cushion, you know, BPA, BPS, phthalate free, multiple third-party testing certifications that all the electronics were safe, you know, bill of materials for the structure and for the electronics. So it's been just this massive process that we didn't even know what we were getting into, but I'm
sure
when we hatched the idea, we went all in. And so, you know, here we are, and we're really happy that at this point we've got, you know, hundreds of people in the United States right now that have this product, that are using it. We're getting great feedback so far. So it's going pretty well. But for men, to answer your question, you know, I think we'll get there to like getting more of a custom design for them. But this was really designed with women in mind. But it can be used by men, and it's being done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried. I had to kind of stick things in there. But what you guys have to imagine is when you get your seat, which, by the way, if you go to LEIAMOON, LEIAMOON.com, use code Beloved20, you'll get 20% off. Highly recommend this product, guys, even if you're only using it occasionally or postpartum or whatever. I mean, there's reasons you can steam. There's indications for steaming even for labor preparation later in pregnancy. Find a steaming facilitator before you start doing that. I happen to be one of those. SteamyTick.com is kind of like the OG in the United States anyways on how to find the directory of practitioners. But what we're talking about here when you get your steam chair is that there's kind of like a toilet seat cover, except there's not a cutout in the front for genitals. So it really concentrates, for those who are yoni steaming, it concentrates all of the steam into the areas that you want it, including into the anus, across the perineum, into the around the external genitalia, the vulva, the clitoris, into the vagina. The steam goes up into the cervix. It flushes through the uterine cavity, out through the fallopian tubes. And so you can imagine, with all of the areas that are getting better perfusion as a result of the steam, as well as the additional medicinal herbs. Again, you can get herbs in different blends. Do you guys sell those at your website, or is...
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So you can get them there as well. You have different, applications for these herbs, but you can imagine that there is a variety of women's health issues that can be, let's say, mitigated with the support of steam. So Jessica, let's go back a little bit in time, and you don't have to go into graphic detail, but was there something you were struggling with in your own health that kind of prompted you to look into this technology?
It kind of came to me. I wasn't looking at for it specifically for that reason, but I was suffering from very irregular periods for many years due to an endometrial polyp that I didn't even really know was there until maybe like 4 years of irregular periods and just still kind of going through the motions. And I think so many women have irregular cycles and just are made to feel that that's normal, or it's something that's going to take a
Yeah.
lot of time to hack away at. And in our modern working woman world, we're not supposed to slow down and really tune in to this amazing life-giving organ in our bodies that has
Yeah.
such a unique cyclical nature. We're kind of really tuned off to the cycling nature of how we operate. And I was certainly one of those people. So that's sort of what I blame my polyp on, was just complete burnout. I was, getting my master's of architecture, working for this big firm in London at the time, dealing even with some like emotional, what I would call like trauma, little t trauma, and then just having really irregular periods and just not really caring, just not thinking that that was important. And eventually, I was told I may be going through early menopause. This is well before I partnered and had children. So I was just like, how is that possible? I'm in my late 20s. I went through with a surgery. And after the surgery, I was like, okay, never again will I not listen to this incredible, loud, almost, I treat my uterus now like it's, almost this separate personality. It's this portal to like this cosmic space beyond.
What is it telling me? What is my womb
Yeah, I
telling
just
me?
think there
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
is a time in our cycle where we're more introspective, during menstruation, and that we benefit so much from really honoring that and listening and writing and really taking away from that time of how we're
Yeah.
going to traverse the rest of the month. So I learned about yoni steaming less than a year after I'd had this surgery, as part of me, just discovering all these different wellness practices to really get to know my body again and to be embodied. And this one for me was just like the game changer. I was at a women's circle on the summer solstice in 2016, and the woman that was leading it was like, here's a sachet of herbs, everyone go home and try this out. And there wasn't really that much instruction. And so that's when I had this moment to kind of sit with myself in my own space, on my own terms, and completely relax that part of my body. And it was just a super cathartic, revelatory moment where I was like, okay, this is the ticket for me to kind of time either like a few days before menstruation, which is when I really prefer to do it, as well as a few days after, to start to kind of go into that descent of the menstrual phase of our cycle and, honor that slowness. And yeah, so it wasn't that, healed the polyp. I really got to the point where it got so large where I needed surgery, but it definitely made me focus more on how to take better care of myself around my cycle and to like celebrate the, changing behaviors that are very natural and there with good reason. And I'm certain that that's, why I've been able to maintain a super healthy uterus ever since. I've, gone on to have 2 beautiful pregnancies and births, well into my late 30s, even 40. My son was born
Yeah.
last year. Healing postpartum, even kind of navigating, recuperation after miscarriage and between my two children. There's just been so many ways that, having that time and being able to really focus on honoring and relaxing and creating ritual around the
Yeah.
womb,
Yeah.
it's been super beneficial.
So, there's a lot of doubters out there, and what they do is they go online and they go to PubMed and they look for the research. There's almost zero research. And I know that Kelly Garza and Kimberly Ann Johnson and a couple other people authored a paper on postpartum yoni steaming, and it was a very small group of people. This is not a criticism. It's just like it was self-funded. They don't have $1 million sitting around to study this. But just because there's a lack of quote evidence, in the published literature doesn't mean that there isn't some benefit to this. But to add to that, this is an ancient practice that predates modern medicine by centuries, if not millennia. I mean, this is something that we know was taking place, and it continues to take place as a part of routine self-care in a variety of countries. When I was living in Korea, it kind of sounds like what you had, Andrew, sort of like there was like this rotating sauna and cold plunge and showers and everything. They have these Korean spas. When my wife and I were teachers there, this is before med school and before everything, she remembers seeing like steaming as an option there. It was just like a part of what you do when you go to your self-care day at the sauna, at the spa. And when we think of spas, we think of like manicures and facials and all of that. And that is offered at those facilities, but it's more importantly, your phone is away and you're just like being still for a period of time. It might be multiple hours at the spa, going between the cold and the hot and the steam room and the dry sauna, and then maybe you do actually some yoni steaming while you're there as well. So this has been a part of many cultures, and just because it is a little strange to us Americans doesn't mean that it isn't beneficial. So I encourage everybody to try it. And to really embrace that it may not even just be the steam or the herbs that are added. It could also just be like you've taken some time to just be still by yourself. And Andrew, you can comment on this. Of course, being in a dry sauna, yes, it's hot. And yes, it feels good to sweat and all these things. And it makes you feel jazzed for the day. But also your phone's away and you're just like being still for 20 minutes. There's actually some real great health benefits to that. So Andrew, let me take it back to you. Maybe you and then Jess, you can answer this as well. What sort of testimonials have come through since you've had people starting their steaming practices? Like what sorts of conditions maybe have they reversed? How have they felt after they started it? Maybe you can I'll just open the box there. You guys can both comment if you've been receiving any feedback.
Well, let's see. One woman that is a Mayan abdominal massage therapist who's been practicing steaming for the last 25 years, she was saying, and she also teaches. For her, this has been a regular part of her practice, but since having the seat, she's just saying it's making it so much simpler that she's able to do it more regularly, and has noticed some shifts like post-menopause where she's feeling, a bit more sensation come back, even though she's been practicing for a long time. Being able to make it a more regular ritual with a tool that just makes it so much more accessible with her typical routine has really changed the way that she's feeling in her body.
Did you say sensation? Like she has more, like better sexual gratification? Is that what you mean by that?
Something that happens too, especially for postmenopausal women, is that, all like the pelvic bowl or all the ligaments and tendons, that start to kind of like tense up, or even like, that there's just a deeper relaxation, and that allows for more space. And more space, for blood to flow, to increase circulation, to kind of engorge the area. So I think that's potentially why women are starting to feel more sensation, more, stimulation than they may have otherwise, just by like getting into that practice of expanding the area and releasing or contracting. And that this is a tool that can help you exercise that. And it's kind of involuntary too. I think that's what's nice. It's not like Kegling or doing something where you very, you have to put
tapping
some, like,
or something.
I think that's what I love about it too. And when I'm saying relax, it's not like, even like meditation, where it's this practice that you have to kind of build up over time to really truly enter these states. With steaming, it's almost immediate. Once your underbody is met with this moist, aromatic heat, our bodies just melt. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it. You don't have to know how to do anything. You don't have to have any like fancy certifications. You just have to make the space for yourself to really deeply relax and take care and recognize, it's part of our collective human history to commune with plants and the elements and really understand and get to know our bodies. Because I think that's something that's been kind of taken away from us as women and men, all humans, since really like industrializing medicine. We've forgotten that for the buildup of generations and generations of genetic coded knowledge of how to really work with plants and know how our bodies work has sort of been now put in these like fancy towers, and we go to someone else to really understand how we work. And I think that's why it's harder to listen in and understand why when things are going wrong. But yeah, I think that was one feedback that we got that was really fascinating to me. Even for fertility, for sure, women that have been trying to get pregnant that are even, doing IVF or IUI, they're steaming, around after menstruation and right before ovulation, or even when they ovulate before trying to conceive or having intercourse, that can be a really great time to, thin the mucus, help get things really relaxed and ready to receive and hold. So fertility has been, a great use for vaginal steaming.
Well, or even there's a few fertility specialists out there that are pretty cutting edge that will recommend doing vaginal steams when prior to coming in for the actual like insemination or implantations that they're doing at certain clinics. Rob Kiltz is a name drop that I'll throw out there. He's big in the keto space right now, but he's a pretty well-known fertility specialist who advocates for vaginal steams for that reason.
Yeah. It used to be a part when I had my own fertility program, which I stopped offering because it was an administrative nightmare, because it was just too many balls in the air all at once. So when I have a brick and mortar facility and I can offer steams, that would be something we would be doing on site. But what I would do is just send them the herbs, help them get the setup, and then have them doing that at least on a weekly basis. Or if you guys are curious, one sort of protocol, if you want to call it that, would be 3 consecutive days before your bleed, anytime during your cycle before your bleed, and then 3 after you've stopped the bright red flow, in order to kind of just cleanse and restore the womb space, which when I think about, like, when people ask, like, for what reasons would you do steaming? It's like, I can't think of a reason not to do steaming. That's kind of the thing. This is not a pharmaceutical. Like, this is something that can just be a part of your regular care so that you don't end up with an issue that now needs to, quote, be treated. Let's just give the body the tools and restore the blood flow to the tissues that are really, really trying to optimally function, let's just say. I will, the laundry list of things that I've seen people improve on is intermenstrual bleeding, which is usually indication that there's a polyp, heavy bleeding, which could be fibroids, adenomyosis. It could be that you're not ovulating sufficiently. The steam gets to the ovaries, to the tubes, to the uterus. Persistent HPV. This is a big part. In fact, your product is featured in this new program that at the time of people listening to this is out there. It's clearhpv.com. The program is called Clear and Free, your holistic solution to persistent HPV. People who have early cervical dysplasia, they've got HPV that just isn't being integrated well by the immune system. So much benefit there from this. That combined with some directed supplementation and an already healthy lifestyle. This is the women's healthcare package. Like, this is a part of that package, that program, for nearly every single person that comes my way. So I hope that we can get as many of these stools into people's hands as possible. I wanted to quickly go back to something you guys had talked about, which is sort of like the body literacy that we learn. You guys and I are about the same age. But if you could go back to middle school and think, like, what did we really learn about women's health in health class? Like, all those hours we spent. Andrew, do you remember learning anything at all about, like, how babies are actually made or about women's cycles or anything like that?
Yeah, I went through the standard, I guess, like sex ed classes when I was sixth, seventh, eighth grade. Back in I guess that would have been late mid '90s,
Hmm.
and it was pretty old school. Nothing. I mean, like I had zero awareness, compared to the information that we have today. I mean, I didn't start learning or like really like thinking about the menstrual cycle in the way that I understand it now until until we started embarking on this whole journey that we've been on with this product. I mean,
That's
probably
awesome.
7 or 8 years ago. And well, for me, I'll rewind. I've had my own experiences with plant medicine that kind of opened me up to otherworldly energies and what I would call the divine feminine essence and energy. I know you talk about psychedelics in some of your programs, but
Boy, the interview is going to get a little longer. Okay.
yeah, that was kind of like, well, when Jessica first
Hold
came to
on.
me and told me about Yoni steaming and what it was doing, I had already had this like previous download of like sacred womb portal, feminine energy. Even before the steam seat, we were talking about like menstrual blood, and we did a thing. We did some kind of ritual where what did we do? You like put some menstrual blood
On the back of your neck.
on
Yes,
the
I
back of
did.
my neck.
Go on.
What was the this is a long time ago we did it, but there was like a specific purpose that I don't recall at this
I
moment.
think it was, because we had just moved in together, and I think we were kind of exploring our like intuitive communication, and that was something I had read about, and I was like, oh, let's give this a try. I mean, we kind of did it in a playful way, but I think for me too, that was when I, post polyp surgery was like celebrating the visual of my bright red menstrual blood because I hadn't
Wow.
seen that for many years of my 20s. So I
Yeah,
was like,
that's
wow.
right.
And I was learning about, not sticking tampons way up there to plug it up and let everything coagulate and leave it
Oh
up there for
yeah,
8 hours. I was like, oh, I can use a cup, and then
yeah.
I can take the cup out and I can look at what this stuff is and what it looks like, and make the connection that it's all, the lining of my uterus, that there's this pear-shaped sized organ that's sitting as the crown jewel in my pelvic bowl. I was having my own epiphanies around that, and we both really were. But anyway, that was when I was really collecting my blood and we were looking at it, and you were a part of that, which I really appreciated.
That is dope. Keep going.
Yeah. So okay. When all this was happening too, like the shift in awareness for me was, okay, first of all, if you remember growing up, like as a guy, like being in the gym in the locker room, like the period thing was kind of taboo, and it's always something that you would joke about or kind of like make fun of. Or if you'd walk down the menstrual products aisle in a pharmacy, you wouldn't want to be seen there as a guy, or you'd feel awkward looking at it or whatever. And for me, like having that the plant medicine experience combined with just the learning that I had with Jessica and everything that she had gone through, and this kind of cosmic download that I got was like the realization hit me that this stuff it's like magical,
Oh
actually.
yeah.
Like it's a magical process, this cyclical nature that of the woman going through this cycle every month, and the uterine lining shedding. I mean, this is the place where all humans come from, right? This is like the portal for life. It's inside every woman's body. So the reason that we're all here is because this sort of alchemical, yes, it's scientific, but it's also, it's like there it's the great mystery. It's
Magic.
a great mystery of life that we don't completely even understand. So understanding that is what that really is like is a powerful realization. And then
Yeah.
then shifting my mindset from of this like, oh, that's this gross weird thing, to like, whoa, this is everything. Actually, this is something to be in total awe of.
Yeah.
So that, having that kind of awareness around what the process really is of this feminine cycle, especially at the time when she started doing the steaming, was kind of like what I found to be really reassuring when we made the decision to go all in on this product, because we're like, this is crazy. You know, I'm a real estate broker by trade, and I done a lot of other things. I'm a musician and did some acting, and she's an architect. And it was like, we knew this was going to be a massive undertaking to do this, but like that awareness around what this is and what this feminine cycle is and where it was at culturally, but like how much value it was giving to her and the potential value that it has for women. And we saw an opportunity to, you know, make that process better and easier and do it in a really, you know, streamlined, modern way. Was having that awareness about the whole thing is kind of like what reassured me that we were like on the right track and we were onto something, and helped me commit to like the massive commitment that it's taken to get to where we are with this business and product.
Yeah, man. That's far more in alignment with how I show up in the world than in a prescriptive way of doing things, right? If you're looking for, you know, diagnosis A gets treatment A, like you could do that in naturopathic medicine, chiropractic medicine, Chinese medicine, allopathic medicine. You could do that, but that prescriptive way of looking things oversimplifies some of the greater mysteries of life. And what I love about this conversation around Yoni steaming is, first off, just because we don't know the mechanism doesn't mean that it doesn't work. There are countless women who've come back to me and said, thank you for recommending Yoni steaming. And it costs them like $50, right? I mean, once they get the stool, maybe they're spending $50 to $100 on herbs, or they're just gathering herbs in their garden or in the woods. You know, my wife, when she was had our babies, she's Mexican, and her mother would bring back a whole suitcase filled with postpartum steaming herbs. It was just like a part of the thing. It wasn't like, hey, what's the issue? Here's the prescription. It was like, here, use these herbs. This will help her connect back with her womb space and heal that area. Could it be that healing is actually a response to us connecting to the tissues that most need the healing? In other words, like what you said, Jess, like the polyp was a message, or persistent HPV. There's a signal there, but that's actually not the problem. The problem is that you've been detached from your body. And I think original sin and a lot of our biblical scriptures and all of this, I think it actually detaches us from our own nature, which is what you were getting at, Andrew. And if you go into a deep enough dive with mushrooms or something like that, suddenly it all becomes clear for the moment, and you can't unsee that. Suddenly now you're being born through the womb of, like, through this Shakti energy brought by the mushrooms. You're being born by the universe anew in this alternate universe, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of an ineffable experience. But once you go through that, you start to realize just how important this very nature of connectedness is. And then if we have tools to help facilitate that on a regular basis, that's where real healing comes from. This is what salutogenesis looks like. It's not a prescription for a problem. It is a reconnecting with who you are on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And then once you've embraced that dance of health and well-being and connection and sex and intimacy and all of that, that comes as a consequence of this better interconnectedness of ourselves with our surroundings, with our partners, and with our communities. So rant over, but I just love everything you guys just threw into the conversation.
Well, it's even a good reminder for us that that's like the real reason why we made a product. This is like a tangible object, a thing that's part of, our consumerist way of operating right now. Like we're selling something, but the real intention behind it is this like big need for a massive cultural shift. And like we're playing our part by making a home electronic vaginal steam seat to try to shake hands with as many people as we possibly can and just get, open that portal a bit more widely to making women recognize like that there's this incredible organ inside of their body that they have full access to all the time in any given moment. So we have to remind ourselves that we don't really have to, but that's like really what's at the forefront for us in creating this, for sure. And
Yeah.
it's exciting, that we finally have it here. It really has been like 7 years of back and forth and making sure we're doing this, in the best possible way. But now that it's, physically here, we're like just so lit up by connecting around with so many people that are tuning in to this, reorientation of how we feel in our bodies.
And
Yeah.
I'll just add on to that this, bringing it back from the cosmic just to something very pragmatic. One of the, if you Google vaginal steaming and you look it up, there's media critics and naysayers, and one of the other biggest criticisms that is out there is that, oh, why would you need to steam your vagina? Because vaginas are self-cleaning. And steaming just means that they're just trying to tell you that your vagina is dirty.
But you're
and
dirty.
That's terrible. Yeah, which is like nothing could be further from the truth. And so I think this goes along with everything that we were saying. Like, no, this is recognizing that your body is the vagina is a self-cleaning magical powerhouse, and it's incredible. And this is a tool to help aid in your body's natural processes, like first and foremost. So, regardless of all the potential or the double-blind clinical research trials that haven't been done yet, although we hope to be a part of like creating more of those in the future at some point. But regardless of all of that, the anecdotal reports of benefits that women are getting from steaming are just continuing to pile up and pile up and pile up as we learn more and more about it. And even if you don't have some specific particular health issue that you're doing it for, at the end of the day, for all the reasons that we've been discussing, this is a great way for someone to complement what their body is already naturally, magically, scientifically doing, and connecting their mind back to that part of their body and working with it in that way.
Yeah. Hey guys, it's Nathan. Sorry for this brief interruption, but I got to tell you about a new offering that I'm going to be making available this fall. You've heard about the Born Free Method. That's our comprehensive pregnancy and postpartum program. Includes 12 months of weekly calls, 100+ video modules, tons of citations around pregnancy and postpartum. Well, Born Free is an umbrella under which there's going to be a lot of other courses. And the second course in this anthology is called Clear and Free, Your Solution to Persistent HPV. It's a collaborative effort between me and Mimi Lindquist of the Medicine Podcast. She is a relative expert in, I say relative because I don't consider anybody a full expert in anything, but Mimi has gone deep into human papillomavirus and some of the ways that we can use lifestyle to augment the immune system in hopes that your routine screening for HPV or your routine pap smears are going to come up negative and clear, so you can go another 3 to 5 years and not even think about it until your next appointment, whereby hopefully you'll screen negative again. So the typical path that many women experience of all ages in their OBGYN clinic is, hey, you're due for a pap smear and we're going to test for HPV as well. If one of those comes back abnormal, your OBGYN is going to say, oh, darn it, it's abnormal. Why don't you come back for a repeat screening in 6 months or 12 months? And this process continues, right, until you end up with either a progression of abnormal cells in the cervix caught on pap smear or a persistence of human papillomavirus, meaning your body has not been able to integrate the message of this virus, right? Remember, viruses are not living things. So in the meantime, your OBGYN or your midwife or nurse practitioner hasn't given you any tools in order to help support your immune system through diet, through movement, through sleep, through stress management, through hydration, through all of those modifiable lifestyle factors, so that you can be sure that if you had an HPV positive screen initially, that the next time it's going to be negative. Now, the other part of that conversation, of course, is, hey, I got the HPV vaccine. Aren't I safe now? Well, the problem with Gardasil 9, which is the primary vaccine that is offered to young men and women as early as age 9, has not been demonstrated to be either effective at preventing cervical cancer nor safe because of the aluminum adjuvants and everything else. So there's a lot of controversy around HPV and cervical cancer, and even cervical cancer screening methods along with this vaccine. What do I do? Should I get it? Should I not get it? Should my little girls get this vaccine? And so given the sort of swirling pool of information and misinformation out there, I went deep as well. And Mimi and I teamed up in order to clarify for everybody out there the realities around what HPV and cervical cancer screening looks like, what can be done while you're waiting for your follow-ups in order to support your immune system to integrate the message of that virus and avoid any abnormal cells developing, and hopefully avoid painful biopsies, or even worse, LEEP procedures, cold knife comb procedures, and of course, worst case scenarios, cervical cancer. There's so much that's in your power. Your doctors, your practitioners probably aren't maybe educated or incentivized to share all of that information, but we're going to do that through this course, as well as all of the realities around vaccines, especially Gardasil 9. We look at data from the United States and elsewhere in the world. We speak to attorneys who are litigating on this topic around Gardasil 9. What you can expect from the course is around 90 lessons, self-guided. And we're going to also offer monthly calls for 6 months after you enroll with me and Mimi, where we're going to be able to answer all of your questions and provide you with that support that perhaps you aren't getting from the healthcare professionals that you've entrusted your cervical cancer screening and your well woman care. So we get into HPV, we get into cervical cancer screening, we get into the immune system, vaccines, viruses. It's everything you wanted to know about any of those topics. Go to the link in the show notes and you'll find your way to book an enrollment call, and we'll get you enrolled right there. We're going to be enrolling in October. I hope to see you there. Yeah, you know, there's the big criticism. I think Gwyneth Paltrow's sort of efforts to bring to light, and I think Chrissy Teigen was talking about steaming. I think they got a lot of shit because from certain feminists, which I'm not so certain that they really are the future of feminism, would say that these technologies, like you said, our promotion of these technologies is a promotion of this sort of again, it kind of goes back to our Protestant and Catholic sort of roots here in the United States, but that you're dirty, that menstruation is dirty and unhygienic, and you should just tap that thing off and not talk about your blood, or not, you know, let anybody know you're bleeding. Like this is this hush hush thing, when really there's 13 cycles per year is actually the most beautiful part about being a woman. That is actually very anti-feminist, according to many feminists. But I think that the modern movement of feminism is a fuck all of that. What actually feels right in your body right now? Like, when are you going to reclaim your power as a woman and your inextricable link with nature, which, Andrew, you and I, unfortunately, we don't have quite that link that women do. But that same link to nature has also been the main source of what's the word? The sort of main thread that so many critics of this uncleanliness sort of hypothesis around femininity, that like perpetrated the witch trials and everything else, that women are these like disgusting creatures, right? So what we're talking about with this steaming is not, hey, your pussy needs cleaned. We're saying, hey, if you can do this practice, you're going to be better connected to that sort of inner nature and the nature of your environment, such that you are actually now taking that power back by tuning into what it is that you actually feel right now, and forget what everybody tells you about what you should feel or what you should be or how you should show up in the world. You are taking actually some power and ownership and saying, I'm going to do this because this feels good. And I'm going to honor my womb space. That's the center of life force energy. It's your second chakra. Again, predates way earlier than our modern sort of understanding or scientific knowledge around, you know, menstruation or reproductive health or reproductive justice. This is a matter of reclaiming that thing that makes you so beautiful and powerful in the world, which is recreating life. Or you could say recreating life, depending on your views of karma and dharma and everything else. But, you know, my point here is that this is a practice that honors your feminine, as opposed to cleansing you of that sort of thing that they used to say about women in the past. This is not what we're talking about here. Again, end rant.
Oh, it's so true. And I think this practice really offers an opportunity to, have a ritual around menstruation for women. So it's even
Yeah.
this kind of dependable, ritual that your body can count on happen. Once we kind of create these patterns, we already are patterning as cycling biorhythmic bodies, but I think also adopting rituals where you can slow down and honor and recognize, that you're in that liminal space between your bleed and when you'll kind of rise back up to ovulation and really like soak that in. I love that about this practice too, is that once you're committing to it, you're going to also be committing to knowing when you're menstruating. I think so many women don't even know when that's really going to happen. It
Yeah.
kind of surprises them every month. A little blood shows up in your pants, and then you're like, okay, I guess I should take care of that. I know so many people that operate that way, where it's kind of this afterthought instead of really putting it front and center for how you're really planning your entire month. And so many people, like in the way that we're operating in our society, like there's not a lot of space for that. So like we have to
Yeah.
really start creating it. And one way to create that is by like committing to these rituals, reframing our calendar. I started putting in our shared digital calendar of like when I'm menstruating each month, so that like my whole family is like really very much
In tune.
aware of these
Yeah.
changing times. But I think that's the real hope, is that we can start to really like turn the dial on the 24-hour cycle to like the quarterly cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I say this over and over and over again, but everybody's like, damn the system and damn the man, and I'm tired of people taking my, taxes, and you're not going to take my gun and all this other stuff. The most disruptive thing you can do right now with the amount of money being spent in modern healthcare is to make yourself as healthy as possible so that you don't need the surgeries and the polypectomies and the hysteroscopies and the birth control and all of these other hormonal methods, the surgeries and everything else. Like, if they can't rely on you to pay them all of that money, then that is the most disruptive thing you can do to a system that has largely stripped us of our power and our rights and is continuing to do that. So I
Home
think that these
birth.
self-care practices, home birth, I mean, that is one of the most radical things you can do nowadays, which sounds ridiculous, but
It's
it really
crazy.
is. It really
It's
is. Did
crazy
you
that
guys
that's
have home
crazy.
births? It's crazy that
Yes.
that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
about your birth.
Yeah. I mean, let's see, I got pregnant and we had just moved out of New York City up
Oh,
to a
wait,
more,
can I just interrupt you and rewind before getting
yeah.
pregnant? Because I actually wanted to tack on into what you were saying earlier, about becoming more aware of your cycle, using steaming as a ritual and that being a practice. But that's a step into intentional living and
Yeah.
intentionality. And
Yeah.
so and steaming was an intentional part of our intentional conception practice for both of our children. So we intentionally conceived, very intentionally, and it was like a slow ramp up with our first daughter. I don't want to tell your whole pregnancy story, but I just wanted to throw that in there, that
That's awesome.
steaming can be tied in with like the intentions, not just around monthly ritual, but around different life phases, and we that was part of an intentional conception of both of our children. But please go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Yes. So once we got pregnant, yeah, I mean, most women don't even know that there are choices there. And I guess that was kind of what I was thinking at first. Like, oh, well, people give birth in hospitals and you see your OB. But because we had just moved, I didn't even really have an OB established. And thankfully, I took a birth doula course probably like 2 years beforehand. So I was aware that there were other ways to do this. I just had to like really dig my heels in and find them, because that's it's hard to find these other options, especially if you're not in like a big city. So I took my time with that part. So in the meantime, I was seeing an OB at the hospital, and straight away, they were saying, well, you're of advanced maternal age. You have to really be careful. We'll probably induce you by 38 or 39 weeks. You'll have to, be lying on your back in these very specific positions, like all these things that I was sort of like, okay, well, I'm a very conscious person. I can be in any environment, and I can do this. I can birth the way I want to, no matter what the circumstances are. I had never done this before, and I was sort of trying to sell myself that. that story for a bit until I got to being like 30 weeks pregnant. And I started watching some YouTube videos, one of a hospital birth and one of a home birth. And I was like, what am I doing? I designed a home electronic vaginal steam seat. I'm definitely choosing home birth. So yeah, you're kind of living in a different strata of consciousness too during pregnancy. So to like really get down and do a lot of research feels really overwhelming, to be honest. So I really relied on my birth doula during that time, and she helped connect me with a few other home birth midwives. And even that part was hard because they were saying to me,
Sure.
well, this is a first time birth. You've already waited to like, I think it was like 32 or even 32 weeks along, or 33 weeks along. And they were, a little hesitant to take me on, or maybe already all booked up. And I found one, Susan Ranestad, who agreed to take me. But at first, I had to drive out to her office. We had this whole interview process because I think she really wanted to make sure I was like serious about it. And I called her the next day and I was like, yes, I'm in. Let's do this. And then the weeks passed. We had an incredible birth day. And of course, you don't know that that's going to be the day. But I remember, waking up, feeling some intense cramping, Andrew being out for a run during that time. And I was like, okay, this could be something moving, something softening and opening. I think this is what it feels like. I'm not sure. And then it stopped. And I was already 41 weeks and 2 days. So I had a biophysical profile, ultrasound scheduled for that day, just to make sure everything was looking all right since I was past the due date. And I was like, I guess we should go.
She did air quotes for due date for those of you that are listening with good reason, because hang around what is a due date really, and how, but I digress.
Yeah, so we decided to go down to the same OB's office where I had who I was originally seeing to get this ultrasound done that was, ordered by the home birth midwife. And that was kind of an interesting juxtaposition just to remember, like I'm not going to have to deal with these people again, because they were like, well, where are you birthing? Like what? It was very confusing for them. I'm like, no, I'm just here to get fluid levels looked at.
It was pretty punk rock, actually. We showed up at the hospital and we're like, yeah, we need the ultrasound, but like, and they were kind of like, yeah, they were definitely looking at us a little bit funny. Like, what are you doing back here? Because you guys left. And we're like, yeah, we're glad we left. Give us the thing.
To be fair, I appreciate all the information. Like, I'm the type of person that I know some people are super against ultrasounds at all during pregnancy, but I really kind of like this marriage between, we have certain technological opportunities during pregnancy to get more information and to feel more grounded and confident. And that was helpful for me. So I'm kind of glad I got to do that the day of my daughter's birth. And then after that, we went and had lunch. We went swimming at our friend's property, who has like a sauna that overlooks a pond with all these blue dragonflies flying everywhere. And that's when when I got out of the water, that's when I started to kind of see some of my mucus plug dislodging. And we drove back to our home. The sun was setting. We ate BLTs, and I started vomiting and going to the bathroom, and all the fluids were coming out from all angles. And once I recognized that I was going into labor, I really started to go super, super inward. And it is definitely a blur from there on, but I think that's what happens, is that you sort of, it's such an embodied experience that like the body is doing all of this work, but it felt so primal that this is what it's, this is what it does. This is, especially for a woman's body, this is what it really knows how to do, also involuntarily. And I just had to get out of the way. And I'm so grateful for all of the like mindfulness practices I had to just really trust my own body, trust the baby, and, be present in the moment, not thinking ahead of like, when's that next contraction coming that I have to like anticipate and feel a lot of anxiety around, but just to trust and know that, as much sensation as I was feeling, that it meant progress and that there would be rest. oxytocin flooded rest in between. So I really feel grateful that I had that type of mindset, that I could labor and progress quite beautifully at home in our 250-year-old farmhouse that we were renting, and that probably hundreds of babies had been born in before mine. And the midwife showed up around 11 p.m.
Our doula was already there, though.
Our doula was there.
I called the doula, Jenny. She came over. She was extremely helpful too. I mean, it was once you started really going into that active labor, I became a little bit useless. Like, you kind of just wanted me out of the picture. But then Jenny came, and she was really, I mean, we had a great doula. And then everything just happened in at exactly the right time, is what it seemed like, you know, step by step. It was like I was kind of there for you, I think, in the beginning, to feed you and
chase me around with a bucket.
Chase you around with a bucket.
But then trying to keep the house clean.
She needed, like, Jenny had some very, like, nice stretches for you, and she had these rebozos. I don't know, the rebozo didn't really help you that much, but
I mean, the hip squeezes were like, I just loved that. That was really helpful. But she was also having me like walk up and down our super steep stairs, because later I found out, like, the dialogue she was having between the home birth midwives and herself about, you know, they were sort of like, well, make sure she's ready. I feel like nobody believed that things were progressing so well, because I was a first time, you know, birthing person. And yeah, they just didn't think that between 7 and 11 p.m. I was like as far along as I was. But when they showed up and they took a look, they were like, wow, the head is right there. Like, you're ready to go. And so once I was in the pushing phase and in transition, I did have a birth pool set up, kind of like the water just never really got to the right level. So I kind of bypassed that. I sort of labored in the tub a bit, but I was laying on our sofa, kind of in a sideline position. And once I started pushing, my sack of waters was what was crowning initially. So I'm grateful that our midwife's assistant was taking video of this, because I'm so glad I can now look and really see it in full view. But it looked like this, you know, crystal ball emerging, like this very taut water balloon sack coming through, filled with like vernix. So it was kind of like shining in the light of her iPhone. And it, you know, I really took, I think, almost like 2 hours to just let that stretch my tissues. So I was in a pretty good position for when, you know, that sack, long story, a little bit shorter, my daughter was born en col. So the sac started to emerge like this water balloon. And with the next push, her head kind of came through and was like shrink wrapped in the sac. And then the midwife kind of broke the veil around her head. And with the third or fourth push, the body came through, and there she was. And it was incredible. But yeah, she was.
What was that like for you, Andrew?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, it was great. It was awesome. You know, it's like, you know, I had said I'd done these ceremonies before, plant medicine ceremonies. This was a ceremony. This was like the ultimate ceremony. And so I was just there, like, you know, holding space more or less. And, you know, had a hand for her to squeeze, like, during, you know, when she was going through these contractions. But I was in shock. I had a dream, I think a couple nights before the birth, that the baby was going to be born, like, that her water wasn't going to break and the baby was going to be born en col in the sac. And I had just kind of like, I wasn't assuming that was going to happen. But then I started seeing her with, like, each of these contractions, what started out as a tiny little, like, pearl, like, gradually grow into this exploding, like, this crystal ball that was coming out of her vagina. It was like the most incredible. I couldn't even believe that. I was like, this is no way that this is even real. And it blew up into this ball, and then, like, on the final push, you know, the head came through. We didn't find out if it was going to be a boy or a girl, so we didn't know. But yeah, it was our daughter. But yeah, my daughter's head came through, and it was unbelievable. But, you know, then speaking to the midwives afterwards, that experience, there's no way that would have happened in a hospital. There's no way it would have gone down that way, you know? So I can't explain like how grateful I am that, you know, that Jessica made ultimately the decision for us to do that home birth, and to be to have that experience in our home was just absolutely priceless. And to see my daughter be born in that way was like the most incredible moment of my entire life. Unbelievable, and just phenomenally amazing. And I was so
Life
proud of,
changing.
yeah, and I was so proud of Jessica for just doing it. And she was like in her full power, you know, like just in the glorious moment, you know, of just, uh, yeah, Nick, words can't even describe it.
Yeah. Jess, did you do any steaming afterwards? And when did you start, and what blend did you use?
Yes. So it was such, it's such an intense experience to give birth and even to become mother, like that transition too was like, I just didn't realize how loaded all of those feelings would be. And I think, see, I was reading so much about steaming and listening to friends talk about it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to steam like the very next day. I'm going to steam right away. I'm a steamer. But that didn't really settle right with me. I mean, my whole body really did feel very vulnerable and like blasted open. And there's a part of me that really wanted to like revel in where it was kind of uninterrupted because I had chosen home birth. I could really do that. So I kind of lied in my bed with the baby naked for several days. Not even really showering, just really like feeling all of those the atmosphere in our home was just thick late July air that had been like, vaporized with oxytocin. So just like we were still basking in this hormonal beauty. So yeah, even steaming to me felt like it was going to be disruptive, which I kind of surprised me. But I did have to have I had first degree tear, so I had a couple of stitches, and I talked to my midwife at the time about steaming, and she was like, well, let's, check in on your stitches in a few days and see what feels right. So I actually waited until my stitches dissolved around 4 weeks postpartum. And I did feel, I was really conscious about making sure I wasn't going to like force this, that it felt, aligned for me, that was the right time. And then I steamed, really daily for probably a full week before I started to kind of slow down a bit, because it still just felt really vulnerable. But it was super helpful for, general like inflammation down there from the pushing. I really did have like a longer pushing phase, so I felt like all my tissues and muscles were like bruised. So I felt a lot of relief from heat. I know a lot of people apply cold packs and do a lot of cold things, but I'm definitely more of a hot release that feels way
Getting blood
more.
flow going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure. And yeah, I steam with mugwort, which really helps, increase circulation, and with that like release action. I still had, a bit of lochia coming through during that time. It was quite, less, around a month and a half into it. But yeah, that felt really good. And yeah, even from, the minor tearing that I did have, I could feel, certain herbs like calendula are really great for your skin, for healing soft tissues. And even just, again, like using steaming as a ritual and honoring nursing during steaming, having that kind of oxytocin that helps the uterus contract and shrink back to its pre-pregnancy state while nursing, while steaming, just felt so beautiful. And really doing that as part of like community care. We're talking so much about like self-care and this being like kind of like a solo ritual, but I have 2 younger sisters, that came to my home and fed me and braided my hair and helped me set up my steam. And I think that's a big part of the postpartum healing too, is feeling, super supported, and that we're not doing this alone, and that, honoring rest and relaxation.
So did you use one of our seats at that time? Did we have a prototype? We had like an
No.
early prototype.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
The orange one.
yeah.
The orange one.
The orange. I mean, that was the other thing too. Is like we still were. When you were asking Andrew if he had steamed before with our seat, I was remembering like while I was pretty pregnant was when we were getting a lot of the prototypes in. So I couldn't personally, it was kind of like mid-pregnancy. I would sit on it for like a moment, but I just didn't feel like that was, it's really not recommended to steam during pregnancy when you're really in that holding phase. So Andrew was having to sit on it, or we were using our hands, or like I would kind of put my elbow in there.
Well, we were doing all these tests on the temperature. We had to set up a system to test the accuracy of the temperature gauge, and the feedback cycle of that. So we were, and she couldn't even. She was like really. Yeah, she wasn't in a position where she was going to be steaming like in the middle of her pregnancy. So that was kind of challenging because I was kind of a tester at that time.
Well, guys, I'm glad you did all of that work. I've looked into producing products of my own, and that whole like third-party testing and the testing for phthalates and BPA and BPS and all this other stuff. It is a total, it's the reason that there's not a lot of great products out there is because it's such a headache. So thank you for going through that, investing your time and your limited resources into making what I hope becomes like a household item. I hope that everybody has one of these, and then they get tired of using it and it's sitting in the garage, and then they're all over Facebook Marketplace and everything else. And then just sort of like, like coffee tables. Like I wish it was just something that everybody knew about and had, and you guys, I think, can quickly, with this episode and some of the other affiliates you have out there. I think Ben Greenfield, doesn't he also support your product? Yeah, so he's a buddy of mine.
Ben and his wife Jessa, so they're
amazing.
They both use it. Yeah,
it's the way to go. It's the way to go. I'm just glad that this stuff, the good word is getting out there. So we've talked about the website quite a bit. Why don't you one last time ring off how can people find a stool? The code is beloved20, but maybe you can just tell people about the website and where else they should go in order to get more information.
Yes, our website is LEIAMOON.com. That's LEIAMOON.com. There's a lot of great information and resources up there too. Great FAQ page and other interview series we've done with experts and doctors like Nathan himself. And you can go on over to our shop to use your special code. We're also on Instagram at LEIAMOON Women, Facebook as well.
And one last thing I'll tell people is I actually found that if you add some chamomile essence, or even just count chamomile flowers, or like just a chamomile tea bag, and you use it in your device, you actually will send out a little face sort of adapter, and you can actually give yourself steaming facials. Yes. Yeah, if you guys are watching, Jess has it here in the video.
Every steam seat, by the way, comes with a smaller size of our signature V-Steam herb blend. It comes with the facial steam attachment. It comes with the removable stainless steel herb infusion cup, and you get access to a guided audio meditation that Jessica has recorded, and I'll plug her for that because it's awesome. So it's like a really nice way to drop in especially if it's your first time, but even if it's not, it's like we've gotten incredible feedback on that. So you get a lot when you purchase a LEIAMOON steam seat.
Yeah, and there's a red light function as well.
I love that.
Yeah. Go just say something about that. I love that, especially for the facial part. I'm getting like a red light therapy, and I'm getting the steam. But go ahead, riff on that. Why'd you guys add the red light component?
What's great about red light is that it penetrates the skin on a cellular level, so it's without adding ambient heat to the atmosphere. So if you're heat sensitive, it's a great way to also promote circulation, cell regeneration to the body without excess heat.
Yeah, and these are combination dual near infrared red light LEDs. So they're 660 and 850 nanometers. If you do the research on near infrared and red light, those are the two most beneficial wavelengths as far as the voluminous amount of scientific research and studies that have been done over the past 30 plus years showing the benefits. And LEIAMOON is the only steam seat that has those.
Amazing, guys. LEIAMOON.com. Use code beloved20. You'll get 20% off. Thank you guys so much for giving me some time today. And we'll send as many people your way as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.